Well, welcome everybody to our weekly live stream on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific, and 5 o'clock in the UK, 6 o'clock in the UK, to Recovery Live. Came to Believe Recovery's stream where we talk everything addiction and recovery and everything that's all around it, near it, and by it, and affected from it, and outside of it, and everything. And welcome my co-host Alicea from. Are you still in Meadow Vista?
I'm in Meadow Vista for another few weeks, and then we'll be moving one city over to Auburn, Northern California.
So they're where the fires are sometimes in California.
For sure.
Today, guys, we are starting a new series that we've decided we wanted to present. Really was Alicia's idea that we're going to do one Tuesday a month, right? The last Tuesday of every month.
With a book or something about a book and that affected both of us that we both liked and got something from. And then we'll be talking about that.
It's Book Club Tuesday. That's a good name for it, right?
Yeah.
Book Club Tuesday, right? So it's true. Alicia and I read all the same books. At least she may read other books than me, but we all read the same. These books we read the same books, and they're all related to something that we do or self-improvement or some sort of life-enhancing dialogue. And we love sharing about it. And it all can fit into things that we want to add in living in the go as we support everybody after they've been through the steps, continuing to grow in their understanding and effectiveness of their recovery and becoming whatever it is that they want to be. If you come to our retreats, whatever the paper says you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
It just says you're supposed to be something.
Right. Many times too. I mean, most of the time, I should refrain that. I'm more audible, but you read the actual book, right?
I read the actual book.
I like audible. Yeah, but we will text back and forth and say, "Oh, you got to read this book, and you got to read this book," and then we'll kind of check it out and do that. And many times too, we're like, "Oh, this is so the steps. This is step this. This is step that," and so it's just amazing that you can see 10, 11, and 12 and stuff in a lot of books everywhere.
And it's mostly what we see is examples of practical things that can be done to help us as we're working our 10, 11, and 12. I actually, guys, have been coming to you from Radio City Music Hall today. I'm in New York City in Rockefeller Center, really. It's part of Rockefeller Center, broadcasting to you from the 19th floor of the office building above Radio City Music Hall, where our partners and advocates, Patrick Grace and Sean O'Hare, have an office that they graciously let me use. I'm now calling it the Grace O'Hare
Williams
came to believe
Williams headquarters
remote office here in New York City. Anyway, it's a hot day here in the city. It's
awesome location.
It's an awesome location. Yeah, Alicia was here not that long ago. You came to the office and
Dara and Dale and who else? Dale, both Dales.
Mm-hmm. So, guys, before we go on, I mean, the last time Alicia and I were on together was a couple of weeks ago. When actually it was more than that, because I was off 2 weeks in a row. Because 1 week when we were in Missouri, and then the next week, we were all taking somebody through the steps, doing what we do. But Alicia and I had gone the week before, and we had traveled to Missouri to do a master class. The first time we'd ever done this with some recovery leaders to kind of take them through the program in a abbreviated fashion, maybe about 3/4 of the time we normally take, would you say? Or more like less than half the time?
It was a full day and then like a half day. So maybe, three. Well, a third. I think it was a third. I don't know.
2/3.
It was short.
A third of it that we didn't cover. We covered the whole program, but we did it in a shortened version. And we had never done this before. So we tried going to teach these people, which is we're going to tell them what the steps are and then everything underlying it and why we do what we do. And while we weren't exactly overwhelmed with the results, or they weren't the people. We did get a bunch of positive feedback in the end that they all realized that what we were doing certainly had validity. It's just that they all still just love what they're doing.
Right. But there were light bulbs going off. And I think basically it was really good for you and I to go through that exercise to see like that we could do it and we can hone in on this part. We could now the next one, right? We want to make it even shorter just to see if that works for people that can't take all that time to come and listen to us. So I think it was well worth it.
And I definitely think after doing it that we can make it shorter.
Yeah. It just depends on our audience, I guess, maybe. But yeah, it depends on who we're talking to, and because we're not doing a retreat, right? But that's not the intent.
Right.
The intent is to show them what's underlying and why we do 1 and 2 Friday night, why we do this, so that they get a deeper understanding. So it's a whole different animal.
Yeah, we're creating salesmen. Right? We want them to go out and say their peeps.
And answering any questions that may
Right.
come up, which was amazing. And many of them that we were talking to are recovered, or they say whatever they say in that realm. So they were still learning things, and 10, 11, and 12, they probably have never heard it taught like we have done it. We did it. So I think it was good.
I do too, and I think we'll be doing it in more places around the country. If they want us to come and do that, we'll go do it. Where we don't have a big, strong core team, this is the first step to creating the interest in an area like a tough area like St. Joseph, Missouri.
Really tough. Yeah.
Really tough.
I wonder if we should call it something else other than workshop, but that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole nother issue, right? So the next thing we have coming up, guys, is the Kips Bay retreat here in New York City. Kips Bay is actually a section of Manhattan. It's like 33rd Street and 2nd Avenue. So it's over on the east side. I call it Lower East Side, but it's not the Lower East Side, they say. It's what they call Kips Bay. But it's a nice area of New York City, and we have a facility that we're going to use, and we're going to do what we call a commuter retreat, one of our commuter retreats, which is where people come and then go home at night. Couple advantages to that are the logistics become much more simple, and the cost to the attendee can go way down now because we don't have accommodations, which is really all people are paying for is accommodations and food and some sustaining amount, but it's really nobody gets rich. We just try to cover costs. Really, that's all we do is cover costs, so that we can keep doing it. So registration is available right now, 25th through 27th. We do realize that this is for our New York City audience, basically. Maybe if you're on Long Island or New Jersey, you would come, but you'd have to go home. So if you're interested, go on our website and you have that link there and you can come and join us. And here, the steps presented the way we've been doing it all over the country and the world for 60 years. It's exhausting to think about it.
So, what book are we discussing today?
Right. Well, so today, I don't know whether you told me about this book or I told you about it. I think I told you about it.
No, I think I told you about it, or when I did, you had already known about it because everybody knows about this book.
It's true.
Everybody.
I think I heard it in NCS, a meeting I go to on Thursdays here in New York City, and they talked about this book, Atomic Habits, and you need to read it. So yeah, and you had either read it, we were both right in the middle of it, but we read it together within like 8 seconds, and then we both read it a couple times, Atomic Habits, right? And
Audible and hard copy.
So we wanted to take some time and talk about it and talk about the things that are in it and the great advice it gives and the tools that it can give and how it relates to living in the go and some great practical things and skills and things we can all put in our lives that can relieve a lot of the dysfunction we feel and break us out of old habits, as we're going to say. So the interesting thing for me, Alicia, when we get started here is Atomic Habits right away. Even though it says tiny changes, remarkable results, I thought atomic habits meant big, explosive habits initially.
I did too, but it isn't. That's not what he said. It is doesn't mean that, didn't he?
Right? It's not at all. It's tiny changes. It's that 1% change, and that those compounding positives eventually create a lasting change that can be part of our identity forever.
Which people get so frustrated with, right? Especially in, here we go. I always go down this road, nutrition and fitness. And that's not fast enough. I need bigger changes. I need to lose weight fast. And if you really break it down and talk to this person, if they take a second and breathe, how is that working for you? It's not. Right. I mean, we see the same people at the gym 3 years later, and they have not done anything because they keep going big and then they fall and then. So he talks a lot about that of like baby steps, get that mastered, and then take another step. But people want to just go fast, and it doesn't work. Obviously, look at our world. It doesn't work. So we need little degrees of changes and go from there.
So, why do small habits make a big difference, right? Let's talk about some of the stuff he says in the book. And if you had the book, I'm way at the beginning where he's talking about why a 1% change and how a 1% change, first of all, is really doable for anybody. Can you make a tiny change? Most people, yes. If you said I had to change all my habits in their entirety right away, well, none of us could do that, or unlike that we would. And it talks about stuff like it's so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. We can convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. Whether it's losing weight, building a business, writing a book, winning a championship, or achieving any goal, we put pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. Meanwhile, improving by 1% isn't particularly noticeable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. The difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Look at that. If you get 1% worse each year, you'll decline nearly down to zero. What starts as a small win or a minor setback accumulates into something much more. It's profound the way it works. So think about this, right? Here's this great example, Alicea, that I love in the book, right? About change and then about how things happen, right? So if an ice cube melts at 32 degrees, right? There's an ice cube on a table and it melts at 32 degrees, but it's 25 degrees in the room. And you raise the temperature in the room 1 degree to 26. So you've done something. You've made a change. The ice cube is still frozen.
Mm-hmm.
If you raise it a second degree to 27, it's still frozen. 28, it's still frozen. 29, 30, and even 31, it's still frozen. So action has been taken, but you still haven't seen this big change that you wanted. But there has been progress.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not manifested in a noticeable result. Then all of a sudden, when you hit 32 degrees, it begins to melt. Breakthrough moments often the result of many previous actions that build up potential required to unleash major change. They say cancer spends 80% of its life undetectable in your body until it comes out. These are huge things for people to understand. Making small changes and starting systems that lead to results in a new identity. Sometimes we're starting way below where we want to see that notable outcome. What does he call it? Plateau of latent potential. So until you hit the plateau, you don't see the big change.
That reminds me too. I'm sure you went into it, and I won't look for it. When I compare myself to somebody that's like been working out or build a business or speaking for Came to Believe, and I'm like comparing myself to them, I'm not looking at all the prep and all the work and everything that they have put into. I'm just,
Right.
so we have to do the work. And what did they do? Am I willing to do that? If not, then stop talking about it and get to work. Just like
Right.
if you see your friends that have a great marriage and you're like, mad about it because your marriage sucks, well, fix your own marriage. What
Right.
are they doing? What have they done? And you have to take those steps to get there. You're not going to just like, bam, be 50 pounds lighter tomorrow. And that's what people think or
Right.
want. And then they do nothing. And then they
Right.
gain weight. And it's just like crazy.
Somebody sees the result. I like that. And like goes and sees somebody who speaks really well or does something or plays music really well and say,
I
you're
want
just the result of systems that have been in place for a long time. It's a
exactly.
result of a practicing and a routine and discipline and habits that were created over so much time that have landed this person to be able to deliver this result. I love this line. Now, listen to this, guys. It's kind of profound. It says, change can take years before it happens all at once.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's the ice cube. The change has been happening, the temperature has been increasing, but it doesn't happen all at once, the melting. So you're changing the temperature to melt the ice cube. So you've changed, and then it happens all at once.
But it's not all at once,
But it
really.
was not really all at once, right?
Yeah.
The pressure toward it, there's been energy spent, there's been things have happened as the temperature's been going up, energy's been spent, effort's been put forth,
Right.
and things have changed. Just the ice cube hasn't yet. So um, these tiny changes uh, are huge. So then he moves on to talk about goals versus systems. So, what's the problem um, between goals and systems? I mean, what could be the problem? I know goals aren't necessarily bad, but systems are just more important.
Well, setting a goal, I feel, is just thinking endpoint, 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 and feel free to interject here. With
Sure.
system, you're getting your thoughts in line, you're getting everything in line to attain that goal, and your thinking and identity and becoming the person that has that marriage or has that sobriety or stays in 10, 11, and 12, whatever your goal is. So you need the systems because that's what's going to get you there. Your behavior, your mindset. It's more
Mhm.
than just setting a goal. I mean, anybody can set a goal. How's that working for you?
Well, that's what it says here. It says goal setting suffers from a serious case of survivorship bias. We concentrate on the people who end up winning, the survivors, and mistakenly assume that ambitious goals led to their success. Well, everybody has a goal. So, like says, every Olympian wants to win a gold medal. Every candidate wants to get the job. And if successful or unsuccessful people share the same goals, then the goal cannot be the difference between the winners and the losers. It wasn't the goal that propelled the British cyclist to the top of the sport. It was only when they implemented a system of continuous small improvements that they achieved a different outcome. It was his systems in place that led him to that goal, right? Everybody has that goal. I have a
Right.
goal. I'd like to do this, but if I don't have the systems right, so goals cannot be in themselves what is the difference between a winner and a loser. I just have really good goals,
Well, that doesn't mean anything. What are you doing to get there?
right? So
Like
what?
Sue's been throwing some hard questions at us, so let's take one. What's the difference between systems and processes? So I have a quote on my computer that says, switch from outcome attachment to process improvement. Then you're never stuck, right? So basically, look at your process. So you want to get here, you want to be healthier. Well, what does that mean? Do you want to eat better? Do you want to exercise? Do you want movement? So look at your process, improve your process to get there, and then you're not so fixated on that outcome. But what would you say? What's the difference between
Well,
systems and
well,
process?
I will go to the book. The book says when you change your process, this is the level is considered changing your habits and systems. So implementing a new routine at the gym, decluttering your desk. The process is a system component. So the process and the processes are included within your system. It's the habits and things that are created. So there isn't a big difference between them, Sue. They are complementary. That you put processes within your system that help you retrieve goal.
Like for example,
What's your next question? Go ahead.
I was going to say, for example, would it be a process or a system? Now I'm getting confused. When I do not go to bed until the coffee is prepared for the morning for Timothy, the counter's done, the dishes are out, that's a system, right? But it's
that's your process within the system. I'm going to not go to bed till everything's set. So all the habits is the process. What's the process? I make the coffee, I put the food out. That's within my system.
Yeah.
It's that process, right?
And it becomes a habit. And
right.
Then you just fall back to that. I fall back to that habit. I do it every night.
And what it does have results and a goal at the end, because there is a goal. You want to wake up in the morning and have the coffee, but what gives you the coffee every morning is that system and that process every night. But what is it also doing? It's causing continuous improvement because it frees you to do your morning meditation and morning ideas. It frees you to be able to do some other things throughout the day. And there's a sense of, accomplishment to it, right?
Decluttering is decluttering your space, is decluttering your mind, decluttering your though some people can function in clutter. I think I cannot.
No, I think that's
I cannot.
I'm not sure. I think they do function in clutter, but I don't think that they can. So I make my bed every day, right? Every single day I make my bed when I get out. And if you watch that Navy Admiral, SEAL Admiral talk about why should you make your bed every day? And it's a habit, but what it is at least I got one task done.
And then it'll snowball, right?
Right, there's something in order. And he says this, so I make my bed and I straighten out my room and I leave the house and have the worst day ever. Nothing goes right. Nothing is accomplished. I have a horrible day. When I come home to order and something that was done. There's something to that. That's a habit. And that's can help us create systems. So we've got to move on to that now because now we're on to it. What are these habits and systems? What's the difference between goal-oriented and system-oriented? What is it? The goal is not, listen to this, the goal is not to win the championship. The goal is to continue winning. So if you didn't have the goal, this is a question they make, to win a championship, but you put the systems in place underneath it to be the finest team playing, would you still maybe win the championship? Maybe. Yeah. Because you're using the same systems in place, but those systems will last. If your goal is to win, you go from goal to goal, you're never happy. You could not be, because you're always chasing the next win. You're always chasing the next win. And it creates that thing where it's, anticlimactic. You get to it and it doesn't do for you what you thought it was going to do. Making my bed every day is like anticlimactic, but it does do something for me every day. It keeps me in order. It keeps me aligned. It keeps me going. You making the coffee and doing everything. I do that too. No dishes in the sink, counters cleaned, coffee made the night before. Mm-hmm. Now the other day, I made wonderful hot water. I forgot to put the coffee in.
I've done that before for Timothy. Yeah. He had to remake it. I don't drink coffee anymore, but yeah, I've done that.
Make hot water.
Oops.
Or make nothing. I've made nothing. I don't hear the thing burn. No water. right?
Yeah. Or
So
the power goes out and then I set it again, but it was PM instead of AM. Yeah, those things happen.
what is it? They say just don't do it twice. What was the thing?
Never miss twice. That was in this
Just
book
don't
too.
miss twice. Right, right.
Yeah.
So,
Which is an awesome habit to have, because say I screwed up my diet or whatever, or like me, I forgot to do my 200 push-ups 2 days ago. And I'm like, screw it. Life sucks. I'm never going to do them again. No, you don't miss again. Get back up. Go.
yeah, and just don't miss again.
Give up, and then they eat more muffins, and then they eat more donuts, and then they don't look back.
So how many push-ups did you have to do yesterday?
400. And I did. But that was like the ice cube thing. I was thinking
crazy number.
Like in the past, if you said you're going to do 400 push-ups, I'd be like, yeah, no. But because we did 100 every single day in June, 200, and then I missed one, I could totally do 400. No question. Just like I could totally run a mile now, or I could totally lift that because I did all that prior stuff.
But we started with one, a small thing. So one day, somewhere in our lives, we could only do one.
Exactly.
And I don't remember that day.
I don't either. But like speaking for Came to Believe that I've started doing 2 years ago, year and a half ago. But I was preparing for that in the past. I was going to Toastmasters. I always had that dream, and so it's like they don't see all that prep and all that stuff that I've done in the past for any of us.
Sue said I made my bed every day because there was no one else in it.
He made his bed.
He made his bed. Oh, the Admiral guy?
Or you.
He's talking about me because there was no one else in it. Well, when I was married, there was some...
she can't make the bed because Steve is still in the bed.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It could be that Steve is still in. Well, then Steve has to make the bed. Oh, the Admiral. Well, Steve, I don't know if Steve does not get up before her. I don't know. Now we're getting TMI. Correct, she says. Right. Right. So let's talk about these different habit types, and let's move into a few of the things that you had. Guys, we're only on page 31 in the book. This is this interesting, really practical stuff.
A year.
Yeah, we can talk about this for a year. And it's something that you can put in as a study. And everybody could take something from this. Some of this stuff just doesn't fit. We get that. Nothing fits perfect for everybody. But that's why we read all these different books, right?
Yeah.
And take a piece of all these ones. I mean, everything belongs. I mean, we have like 5 books in our queue, guys. So stay with us. They're all really good.
Good for the rest of the year.
He talks about 3 layers of behavior change, right? Your outcomes, change based on outcomes. It's concerned with changing your results, losing weight, publishing a book, winning a championship. Then the second layer of behavior change is your process. This level is concerned with changing habits and systems. And then the third and deepest layer is changing your identity. This is the level concerned with your beliefs, your worldview, your self-image, your judgments about yourself and others. So we can either have change start from outcome-based, where we start with changing our outcomes that work towards our process that would maybe reveal an identity, to starting with the identity we want, work out and work our processes and systems to it, and then receive the outcomes. So outcome-based, the focus is on what you want to achieve. With identity-based, the focus is on who you wish to become. So the argument is being made that the longer, more satisfying, more beneficial path to take is that you want to it's that you want to focus on what you want to become. So you're going to create systems and process and develop habits that take you to an identity.
Which is leads to step 6, 7, right?
So step 6 and 7, that we're going to take on this new identity, right? And then in 10, 11, and 12, we're creating new habits, processes, and systems through conscious contact and working with others and continuing to take inventory, which lead us to the spiritual awakening or the continued spiritual awakening and recovery.
So like, for example, I'm on page 34. I don't know where you were, but it says the goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument. The goal is to become a musician. So we need to switch to that identity of whatever your identity would be. Like I don't even know how we would say I'm an exerciser. I'm a carnivore. That's my identity. I don't eat that. I just don't eat it. And it just becomes who we are. And then, but to get there, like when I'm teaching step 7, I always concentrate on our thoughts lead to our actions, which lead to our beliefs, which lead to our identity. So it starts in our thought processes. And we're not in control of our first thought. Okay, fine, but you are in control of your second thought, and you need to practice redirecting those thoughts if you need to, and then continue to grow in that in 10, 11, and 12. And maybe they're even in a space of like, well, what do I want to be? Some people might not even know. Like, do you want to be a healthy person? Do you want to be a runner? Maybe they start there.
Well, that's where the 1% change starts.
Yeah.
And you do you change the habit, you can change. And we can go in this so far back in this book in how do you actually start new habits and where do you start and how little is of a change can you make and have it still be a habit that has a long-term huge effect.
Right. But then,
totally possible.
Then the detriment of this is when we don't realize what our thoughts are, we're claiming identities that I'm such an angry person, right? We see that at the retreats, or everywhere. I'm a resentful person. I'm a procrastinator. You're claiming that. So stop. You need to be aware of the thoughts that you're thinking because you are holding on to it yourself.
Right.
It's a choice.
Hey, listen to how he talks. This is very important. You're right. And I tell people this when they quit smoking, or I don't tell them, I give them this advice. If you quit smoking, tell everyone you're a non-smoker.
It's your identity.
Don't tell them you're trying to quit smoking. So he uses that example in here. He says this, imagine 2 people resisting a cigarette. When offered a smoke, the first person says, no, thanks, I'm trying to quit. So it sounds like a reasonable response, but this person still believes they're a smoker who is trying to do something else. You're something that's trying to do something else, right? They're hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. They're still identifying as a smoker, trying to do something else. Then the second person says, no, thanks, I'm not a smoker. It's a small difference, but this statement signals a shift in identity. Smoking was part of their former life, not their current one. They no longer identify as someone who smokes. And it's a big deal. It's why we say recovered. And you can say it if you are. But if you're recovered, you're identifying as a recovered person. You can assume that identity and start living on the right side of your inventory list. Yeah. And your habits and your processes and your systems all go towards that. And success comes. We've seen it over and time again. And now all this research is proving behind the scenes that this is true.
Right. And it doesn't mean that you have to believe it 100% all the time and you're perfect in your 10, 11, and 12, because that doesn't exist either.
Right.
And some thoughts might, for me, I'll take it myself. Some thoughts might pop in of like, oh my gosh, I still judged that person, or I'm still thinking of that cupcake I saw yesterday. I mean, that's going to happen. That doesn't mean I'm not recovered. I still want to claim that recovery because that's what I am. It doesn't mean I'm not going to have those thoughts. That's where that redirection.
Yeah, I've never heard you, judge anybody or judge anything before.
No, never.
Alicea never does it or looks at the cookie thing. So yeah. I didn't notice this, but this is a food person versus this guy's. Where were we when there was a half of something sitting on a counter and you just couldn't believe that nobody was eating it?
I got a trail mix on the table.
Oh, the trail mix. Oh, you're in the entity.
And I know exactly where we were standing. I'm like, did you finish that? Like, I'm full, or whatever you said. I'm like,
I didn't even notice it. And I said, are you really looking at that 12 pieces of trail mix in a little tiny cup.
That's a lot.
Alicia's fun to hang out with, guys.
Crazy.
But here's the opposite of that. And this is exactly what people say. I'm terrible with directions, like you were saying.
I was
I'm
going to
not a morning person. I'm bad at remembering people's names. I'm always late. I'm not good with technology. I'm horrible at math and 1,000 other variations.
Stop speaking that.
We cannot speak that over ourselves.
We're claiming it.
So let's start being identity based. I am a morning person, and start putting the habits together.
Well,
What if that's the identity you want?
You don't even have to go that far. You can just say, I am learning how to be a morning person, because you don't want to lie and feel like if you really don't think you are, or willing, like we say that in the retreats. Are you willing to become a morning person? I want to identify as a morning person. I can learn people's names. That would be mine. I used to say that all the time. And now I try to say, okay, I can learn how to remember people's names. I need to work on it. Am I working on it? No. Then of course you're not going to be good at it. And why is it important to know their names? Or, just finish the sentence rather than just, I'm terrible at it. Okay. Right. So what are you going to do about it?
I like this. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to be. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. This is one reason why meaningful change does not require radical change. Small habits can make a meaningful difference by providing evidence of a new identity. So each time you write a page, you're a writer. Why do you have to finish the book to call yourself a writer? As soon as you start writing a page, no, I'm a writer. You could say that. You've been writing. Each time you practice the violin, you're a musician.
You know what you're reminding me of? And then I don't, because I'm embarrassed, but now I'm like, I should do this. When people say, what do you do? Which I freaking hate that question. But I want to start saying, not only, well, I'm a personal trainer, and I want to say I'm a public speaker, because I am. But I always stop myself because I think that has to be this huge thing that I'm actually paid for. But I am a public speaker. So
you are a public speaker.
I want to start claiming that. So I'm going to.
You just did. Well, that's a great point, Alicea, because that's exactly right. You're a public speaker.
I am.
And you are absolutely the person who would think I have to do 100 speeches and somebody has to else
and I have to get
me as a public speaker. Right.
But you don't.
No.
And I teach at the gym and I do Toastmasters. So and I speak at church. I'm a public speaker.
You're a really good public speaker. All right, we got through some of these. I mean, guys, this is just the high level of this, but you see how interesting this is and see how beneficial this could be. And you see how we what do they call it? We not depth charge ourselves. We sell ourselves short by claiming things that keep us down. And then we develop systems around it, or no system that just reinforces this identity that we have claimed.
Exactly.
Small wins can get us to this new identity.
Yeah. If you say you can't, you can't. If
right.
you say you can't, I believe you. Do you want to be that person? I don't. I want people to catch me on those. I always this, I never this. Really? Do you want to speak that into yourself?
Mm-hmm.
It's not helping you. It's an excuse, actually, because then you don't have to take action. So, what else?
So, right, action and motion, he talks about, are two different things, right? So action, you can take action on something and actually have no motion. I can say, I'm going to learn how to play guitar, I can go buy the guitar. I can go to the guitar store. I can interview guitar teachers. I'm taking action. I'm doing stuff.
It's not it.
But I haven't put it in motion. I haven't taken that first lesson.
Joining a gym, listening to podcasts, watching my YouTube videos on nutrition and this and that it's action, but it's not working until you take action on it. You need to implement. What are you doing about it? What are you eating? Do it.
And, in sales and in even in, like, for me, with trying to with Came to Believe, with fundraising, a lot of, we're meeting a lot of people, we're making a lot of contacts, it's a lot of action, but the results are the sale. When are we making the sale, and how are we pressing the sale, and what are our systems to do that? So action and motion aren't the same thing. There has to be some motion at the end that we see, or we got to watch the actions. We got to say, is it just excuses not to get something done? Some people spiral their whole world in that way, and I hate when that's the case. When
Well,
I'm doing a
I
lot of action without any motion.
Yeah, another quote I have on my computer, it's probably from this book, is effort and progress are not the same. So I think that's
Oh.
where you need to measure. You're taking all this effort, year 3, year 4, you haven't lost anything, you're actually gaining weight. Well,
Mm-hmm.
something's not working. Let's look at your progress. It's not there. So let's measure. What are you doing? And let's switch it. People, like, they keep doing the same things over and over, like the insanity, right? And step 2, we keep doing the same thing, and cardio, eating carbs or whatever. It's they think it's going to work on year 10, and it's not. So switch something. Can you tell I'm a little passionate about that?
He doesn't care about any of this, guys. Oh my gosh.
Switch something.
Wait till you start getting Instagrams from Alicea all day long on things. So Alicea, what should we talk? We got about 10 minutes. Grab one of the other pieces that we want to touch on, and then let's do a quick overview of it. And we hope all you guys go out and grab this book and read it and make it a study like we have.
All right, let's go to this one's not, they're all so good, but let's go to page 92. And at the bottom of that page and onto the top of 93, it says, instead, discipline. Well, let me read more, because instead what? Recent research, however, shows something different. When scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control, it turns out those individuals aren't all that different from those who are struggling. Instead, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. In other words, they spend less time in tempting situations. So I thought that went really good with us talking about keeping spiritually fit and accountability and staying in 10, 11, and 12. It's not that they look at us like, oh, Tom and Alicea are so disciplined, which might be true, but we have systems in place. And I have a sticky note on my mirror to not forget to do step 10 every night because I was forgetting. So I put that system, and then I do it. And then we clean our kitchen at night so that everything is clean and our mind's clear, so we can think about other things in the morning. And willpower too, I heard in a podcast somewhere that willpower only lasts 10 minutes, really, or 10 seconds or something ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's not willpower. It's a habit that we build, that we continue to work on. And structuring our lives in that way it's a habit. It's routine. And then that turns into discipline.
So guys, if you want to think how Alicea and I think the same, I have this exact same part highlighted. Exactly.
Like, yes.
We didn't talk about the exact paragraph highlighted. What's wrong with us? But I have the next one highlighted too, which you probably do too. It says, the people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. It's easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it very often. So yes, perseverance, grit, and willpower are essential to success. But the way to improve these qualities is not by wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment.
Exactly. Like, stop buying the cookies if you don't want to eat them. Don't have them in your house. Put your shoes out in the morning with your clothes for the gym, or, set your alarm, those kind of things in my world. Or, like, what are some more examples of that?
well, they do use some of the examples are here is, I don't want to go too far. So you eat junk. Bad habits are autocatalytic. The process feeds itself. They foster the feelings that try to numb. You feel bad, so you eat junk food. Because you eat junk food, you feel bad. Watching television makes you feel sluggish, so you watch more television because you don't have the energy to do anything else. Worrying about your health makes you anxious. You cause to smoke to ease your anxiety, which makes your health even worse. And soon you're feeling more anxious. It's a downward spiral. Cue-induced wanting, an external trigger, causes a compulsive craving to repeat a bad habit. This process is happening all the time. So you're in that. You don't have the willpower. You don't have the discipline. It's tough. You've got yourself in these tempting situations, and you're in this spirally circle. You can break a habit by you're unlikely to forget it once the mental grooves of habit have been carved into your brain, right? I don't know what that is.
That's reminding me awareness and measuring and monitoring and looking at your surroundings. Like, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep finding myself with these types of people? Or why is that happening? We might have to change our environment, change the people we're hanging out with. And it doesn't mean forever. Like, once we get the routines and the things in place, then we can slowly venture into being around those things, because that's how we get stronger. It's not like I'm never going to see a cookie or cupcake ever again in my life. I'm going to see it. And now it's, whatever. But
self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one, it says. You may be able to resist temptation once or twice, but it's unlikely you can muster the willpower to override your desires every time. Instead of summoning a new dose of willpower whenever you want to do the right thing, your energy will be better spent optimizing your environment. This is the secret to self-control. Make the cues of your good habits obvious and the cues for your bad habits invisible.
Right. Don't have it in your house. Stuff out that you want to see and read and do.
And let's talk about it in our fourth step and fifth step. We've decided that we're not going to be resentful people anymore, fearful or hateful or dishonest. And so we're going to create habits and create an environment that is honest and is loving and forgiving at all times. And so we don't have to use willpower to stay out of it. We just walk into this new identity. We make the cues for the good habits obvious and the bad habits invisible. Love that. Self-control is short-term. Boy, when I get freed from that, from thinking that I have to have self-control, and I don't, that I can change my habits and change my environment and just do things differently. I always say, I don't want to pray for patience in traffic. I just got to not be in traffic. You know that, right, Alicea?
Yeah, but you will be in traffic again. So
once in a while, but I just got to work on that environment. The best way, though, for me is to not be in the environment. So wonderful stuff. Guys, he walks you through how to do all this stuff. We kind of were overviewing some of the broader philosophies behind why habits do and what action versus motion is and what processes versus goals and systems that need to be in place for change and all. But the rest of the book goes in detail on and guides you through how to actually do this in a 4-stage process, and then teaches you about habit stacking. And you start with one little habit. I made my bed today. So if I made my bed tomorrow, I can keep the counter clean. And if I keep the counter clean the next day, I'll have the kitchen clean. And I'll have the kitchen clean. I can do this. And then over time, you habit stack. And all of a sudden, you have this well-organized, wonderful life that doesn't take any more time than it did when you lounged around all the time. You found yourself.
It doesn't mean you have to be perfect either, because we will fall and we will forget to do our push-ups. But we never...
Well, Alicea will forget to do her push-ups, but I'll make water in the morning.
And that's fine. Then get back up, and next time you won't do it.
Right.
Learn from our mistakes. Don't just, claim it and like, see how stupid I am? Well, you're just claiming that. So stop.
And then let's start being identity driven and not outcome driven. And let's start identifying as what we want to be and how we want to do it. It's all about what we're teaching, guys, behind the scenes. This is this deeper stuff. And this is why it lights Alicea and I up when we read this stuff, because we see that it's all supporting what we do with the 12 steps and teaching people to take their life back. It has all of this in it somewhere. We would love to just teach this everywhere, right? With actually, we are putting some of this into practice with what we do. We'd love to have this guy, James Clear, come on Recovery Live with us and talk about atomic habits. We may try to do that one of these days. We're going to find him and get him to come on with us.
Not gonna happen.
So guys, we want to thank you for bearing with us. Let us know if you liked it, if this gave you anything while you were listening to us, and if it inspired you to go out and read about it and see what kind of atomic habits you can put in place in your life. You know,
Get the book, get the book, get the book.
Guys, we may have some other interesting things. Dr. Nee Addy from Yale, we had a meeting with him last week. He's agreed to come on Recovery Live. He studies addiction and science and the brain, and he's also a spiritual man and wants to talk to us about how all that works. But thanks for being with us this week. We'll see you next week, same time, 1 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock UK, 10 o'clock in the morning in California for another edition of Recovery Live. Have a great rest of your week.
See you next week.
Peace.